what's going on, everybody? Toddzilla here with Zilla Fantasy Elite, bringing you Thursday Night Theory. So we got our Thursday night football game, recording this on Wednesday evening. Apologies in advance. I have a hoarse sounding voice at the moment. I was busy yelling all weekend with my buddy competing in an Ironman triathlon. Shout out Shasta. Nice work on that, buddy. Way to finish that. Proud of you. But getting into the Thursday night theory here, Washington heading into Green Bay. We're going to go over what the adjusted line play report is, how to look at this. Again, caveat, this is week number 2, so the very first week of information going in here. Things are going to be a little bit more volatile in these first couple of weeks, so take that with a grain of salt. But Washington heading into Green Bay here. First thing that we look at, Vegas game total, 48.5. This is a very good game total, indicative that we should score quite a few fantasy points and quite a few points in the game itself. Looking at the Vegas line, we have Green Bay at -3.5, meaning they are 3.5 point favorites. That gives Green Bay a team implied total of 26, Washington 22.5 for their team implied total. Getting into the away team first on offense, we're going to look at the offensive pass protection and the offensive pass DVOA. So pass protection versus defensive pass rush, that's essentially an adjusted sack rate. And then DVOA is compared to historical averages. How well did they perform in given scenarios? So it's 2nd and 5, they choose a pass play. How far did that go and how successful were they? That is what DVOA is. So Washington offensive pass protection, they're number 29, one of the worst in the league here. So indicative that maybe some teams are getting home to sack Jaden Daniels, indicative that the offensive line might not be very good, or the quarterback is holding on to the ball too long before getting rid of it. Green Bay, 22 in the defensive pass rush. This is just outside of being red, so 23 through 32 are red. But basically saying, hey, Washington doesn't have very good pass protection, but it might not matter as much because Green Bay doesn't look like they're super good at the pass rush. Despite them trading for Mr. Micah Parsons, they should be a little bit better than this, at least according to the paper. So that's what the offensive pass protection looks like. A little slight flavor here for Green Bay, meaning Washington might have to get the ball out a little quicker. If that's the case, you can expect more dump offs to the running backs and tight ends and any of those receivers that run more underneath routes there for Washington. So looking at Austin Eckler, probably a good bet. Zach Ertz, a good bet if you think Green Bay is going to be getting after Washington with that pass rush. Now the pass DVOA, a little bit different. Green Bay, very good. Top 5 there, 5th in defensive pass DVOA, very good considering they played Detroit in week 1. Washington, middle of the pack, a little bit above that, middle at number 13. Again, this is a slight favor for Green Bay, top 5 unit versus middle of the pack unit. Would expect Green Bay to hold Washington's pass offense in general in this particular matchup, meaning, hey, they might struggle a little bit in that pass game. Again, this is week 1 data. This can be very volatile based off of one data point. Getting into the run side, though, we have Washington number 2 in offensive run blocking. Green Bay also number 2 in defensive run stopping. That's an even up matchup. Typically in those scenarios, you say your studs eat. They can overcome an even matchup between the offensive and defensive line. Then you're just looking at talent versus talent. If your running back is super good, they can overcome that. If they're not, they're probably just going to get what's blocked for them in a game like this. I don't think Washington has anybody like that, but Bill Kroski, Merritt, probably the person that's going to be getting the vast majority of those touches while running the ball. Wouldn't expect an elite game based off of this data. And then run DVOA for Washington, number 1, and Green Bay, number 5 there. I believe this does include quarterback runs, or at least designed runs. So it can play an effect with Jaden Daniels there, but they are number 1 in run DVOA. Unfortunately for them, Green Bay, number 5 in defensive run DVOA. So pretty much a wash there on Washington's side in terms of how well they should run the ball. Based off of this, it does look like Washington will struggle passing the ball. It's pretty much an even matchup there running the ball, so they should be maybe a little bit more effective running than passing. all to say, hey, this doesn't look like a very good matchup for Washington's offense against this Green Bay defense in this matchup. Take that into consideration when you're placing bets or any of your DFS lineups. Now getting into the Green Bay side on offense, they are number one in offensive pass protection, so very good at avoiding sacks. Washington, number 17 in the defensive pass rush. This is a pretty big gap here. This would be indicative that Green Bay should have plenty of time to throw the ball in this matchup. I didn't get a chance to look before this at who was more of that deep threat for Green Bay, but I would bet Matthew Golden, their new rookie, is on that list of people that would be pretty good on that. Romeo Doubs might also be out there getting some deeper shots. Just keep that in mind. Pass DVOA wise, though, pretty even there. Washington on defense, number 4. Green Bay on offense, number 3 in that pass DVOA. Again, that's kind of an even matchup. There's nothing really to write home about, but if you have a stud wide receiver, they can probably overcome some of that stuff. Or you might see them get peppered with more targets just because maybe those cornerbacks are pretty good in general at doing whatever. And if you have a stud wide receiver, they can overcome sort of that matchup. So keep that in mind. Should have time to throw, and then that DVOA suggestive that might not be terribly efficient there with their passing, just with Washington's defense being pretty good. And then on the run side, Green Bay number 14 in run blocking and 22nd in offensive run DVOA. So middle of the pack, and then more towards the bottom for the run DVOA. But Washington number 1 in defensive run stopping and number 4 in defensive run DVOA. So very, very good on defense there and stopping the run. This is a big mismatch in terms of the run game here. Is suggestive that Washington should be able to stop Josh Jacobs in this matchup, despite Green Bay being 3.5 point favorites and perhaps suggested to lead in a matchup like this. I wouldn't expect Josh Jacobs in a matchup like this to be super effective or efficient on the ground. He may score a touchdown, so if you're playing DFS, keep that in mind. But if I was a betting man and I wanted to take home a DFS lineup, I would assume a lot of people are going to say, hey, Green Bay, they're leading. They're expected to win this game. Josh Jacobs probably is going to be a common person in DFS if you want to avoid him and then just attack this Green Bay pass game. And then over here in Washington, considering their pass game doesn't look very good and the run game's more even up, somebody on Washington's side that I'd be interested in playing is Eckler, considering that Washington might need to get that pass out quicker than they would like. Eckler would be the beneficiary in the running back room for that. And then he'll also be the beneficiary of the more beneficial of those matchups, which is the run game for Washington. So that's how we look at the adjusted line play report when we're going through here. We also do take into consideration pace of play when we're doing this. Now we're not going to go over this just because we do not have 2025 data yet from FTN Network for the pace of play that I can put in here. So right now this is 2024 data. Considering Washington and Green Bay are roughly the exact same staff as they were last year, you can probably assume this is pretty close to how it will be, with the caveat that Jordan Love played a lot of last season with an injury, so that might change the pace of play. Green Bay was actually very run-heavy last year, where they might be a little bit more pass-heavy this year. Just keep that in mind. Washington last year, though, did play pretty fast, top 10 in a lot of those categories. Green Bay was a little bit slower, but that could have been due to Jordan Love injury. Just keep that in mind. But really, if I'm looking at this Vegas line, seems appropriate. Green Bay does seem like they have a decent pass game matchup. The run game will struggle, but they should be able to move the ball, or at least have time to throw the ball in the pass game. It does look like the best of the 3 or 4 matchups here on offense between the home and away teams. So the 3.5 line seems appropriate. If I was betting just based off of all of this, it doesn't look like the offenses are actually going to thrive all that well at 48.5 game total. Again, the teams are certainly capable of putting up points. 48.5 is a pretty decent total, but these teams are capable of, putting up 40 themselves. But in a situation like this, we're looking strictly at the adjusted line play report. This is suggestive that they will not score that many points. Placing an under bet on that 48.5 total right now might be a wise choice. It's actually gone up. I think it started at 48.5 for the week. Went down to 48. Now it's back up to 48.5. So keep that in mind. It seems like the betting market has it right about at 48.5, but I would be okay betting the under based off of this. And then if I'm doing some DFS lineups, I'm looking at Eckler having a solid game. If you're going to play some prop bets, he's probably somewhere at the 2.5 or 3.5 reception range. I think he will have 4 or 5 receptions in a game like this. So I'd be okay moving that slider on some of those. I think Eckler would be a good DFS play in general for this game, and then attacking Jordan Love in that Green Bay pass game. If they're not moving the ball super efficiently, it could be a Tucker Kraft style game too with, hey, we might have an opportunity for a few bombs here if that's going to go to Matt Golden. Those might be the 3 people from Green Bay that I'm targeting. And if you're putting in a lot of lineups, maybe being below weight on Josh Jacobs would be a good choice in this matchup. Anyway, that's going to do it for the first adjusted line play report of the 2025 season. Heading into Thursday night football tomorrow, Washington and Green Bay should be a very good football matchup. Hopefully you gain a little bit of knowledge in terms of how we attack this offensive and defensive matchups and how we can apply some of this to predict what goes on in these games with relative good accuracy. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. Welcome to the 2025 season. If you are new to this, hit that subscribe button. We do provide some very valuable information on the start-sit decisions, especially as we get further into the season and this becomes a little bit more entrenched and less volatile on a week-to-week basis of where these people are going to be ranked. We start to see this really shine, weeks 5 through the rest of the season. So keep that in mind. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Good luck. Let's go out there and win some money together, folks. Bye.